Now, 17 million people in Australia have sealed the fate of candidates contesting the parliamentary elections to form the next government. As the polling stations closed, the battle boiled down to the two main candidates, incumbent Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Australian Labor Party leader Anthony Albanese. Now, the early trends show the opposition narrowly ahead of the ruling Conservative coalition. Australian news channels are projecting Labor Party's victory and Albanese to be the next Prime Minister, while the voters in Sydney's east stand divided as some extended their support to the coalition government, while some backed the climate-focused independents. Now, after the dual floods ravaged the eastern coast of the nation earlier this year, the voting trends of Eastern Coast may act as the deciding force for the Australian elections, as the states of New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland and Tasmania, along with the Australian Capital Territory, account for 124 of the 151 lower house parliamentary seats that are up for grabs. Now, the winning party needs 76 seats to form the government in Australia. All of the seats are up for grabs, while the Senate has 76 seats, out of which only 40 seats will be contested. Now it is to be seen whether the Liberal National Coalition will register its fourth consecutive win, or will the Labour Party return to power after 9 years of being in the opposition. And now let's go to Sydney, from where Adam Hancock joins us. He is a freelance journalist. Hello to you, Adam. Now, the outcome seems to be tight. Which way do you see the results moving?
Yeah, absolutely. It's looking very, very close at the moment and very, very tight. A couple of the key analysts and television channels here that are tracking the election, they are calling that the coalition, which is led by Scott Morrison, will not be able to form a majority government. They are predicting that Labour, led by Anthony Albanese, they will get the most seats. But what's not quite clear at the moment is whether or not they can get enough seats to form a majority government. You've got to get 76 to form a majority. So I think what looks most likely right now is either a Labour victory by a majority or a hung parliament. That's where neither of the big two parties get enough seats and they have to form a minority government, because we're seeing the independent candidates are doing very well. There's lots of projected results for them, which are very strong, already seeing lots of votes for them, and therefore they're splitting the vote away from the main two parties. So that's why it's looking very tight at the moment.
Right. And what would be the immediate priorities of the new Australian Prime Minister?
The immediate priorities, first of all, would be the upcoming Quad meeting, which is just a few days away now. Obviously, USA, Japan, India and Australia. It's vitally important for Australian relations with those countries. Australia is having a difficulty in their international relations with China at the moment. Scott Morrison has been very outspoken about China. So I think one of the things will be to think, how do we approach China now? What's the plan with this? We're in the Quad, we're in the alliance with the US. What do we do next in terms of China? The Solomon Islands as well is going to be an important issue. China have signed a security pact with the Solomon Islands. There's fears here that that's really them getting a foothold in the Pacific Island nations, and there's concerns about that. So that's going to be something to address. The economy is a huge issue if we're looking at domestic Australian issues. Inflation here is at its highest level in over 21 years. They recently raised interest rates. The new Prime Minister needs to get a grip of the cost of living crisis that is happening here. And climate change. I think now both of the major parties will wake up to the importance of climate change amongst voters. We're seeing these independent candidates getting a lot of votes. They're campaigning on the basis of climate change. And I think they will realise that this is something that voters care about. We're seeing some extreme weather events here in Australia over the last few years. So our new Prime Minister needs to really prioritise that, I would say.
Adam, what policy changes can we expect if Anthony Albanese emerges victorious?
Albanese is to win. I mean, let's be honest, the campaign was fairly light on policy. He's put forward a couple of things, like he's going to try and ensure that wage growth matches the cost of groceries, also childcare as well. One of his big policies was to make it more affordable, more accessible, allow more people to get access to it. So they will be the two ones. He's going to look, obviously, at the cost of living crisis. He's talked a lot about that. He's talked about how his government will be able to control that. They've proposed a bit of a budget and how they're going to spend and how they're going to try and solve this problem. So I think that's really where he'll start his focus. But again, we don't know that many details because it's been fairly light on policy.
All right, we'll leave it there. Adam, thank you very much for joining us with all your valuable insights.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.